Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Losing a piece of property, paying a six-figure judgment, failing to sell your house and making a six-figure profit, being unable to move your ailing parents into a better treatment facility. What does this mean? How much does this cost? Have you ever been so stressed about a legal problem, but you thought to yourself, but I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford an attorney. I can't afford to hire them right now. So have you instead turned to Google for all your legal advice? Have you been so lost or confused by the whole legal process that you just leave the matter almost alone entirely and you just hope and pray that it's going to resolve itself somehow? Now let's think back to the beginning. Losing the property, not collecting that money. All of the scenarios that I asked you to imagine at the very beginning, let's go back again. Losing a piece of property, paying out a six-figure judgment, failing to sell your house and making that profit, being unable to move your sick parents into a better treatment facility. These are real life cases. These are real life consequences, real life examples of the cost of not hiring the appropriate legal assistance and representation. So, whether we know it or not, we deal with aspects of the legal system all day, every day, from property matters when it comes to our homes, to banking, to employment, marriage, sickness, health, life, liberty, and death. Okay. Our lives just become so routine to us that we don't think about the greater magnitude, the greater consequences of all the legal issues involved until we get to the point where we think we need to hire a lawyer. And even then, many mistakes are made when it comes to trying to cut corners for legal advice and assistance. Not everybody, but often a lot of people, professionals too, I've seen, will try to still save money on legal fees. All right. And you may be thinking, of course, I would say that, right? Because I'm a lawyer. Of course, you're going to say that. You get paid to solve these issues, right? And I've had people approach me and tell me, well, that's what you get paid for. Okay. But if that's what you're thinking, keep listening because once again, the cost of not hiring. Keep that in mind. All right. Today, I'm going to talk about three more legal disasters to avoid legal destructions to your legacy when it comes to the issue of actually hiring legal help. All right. So, the first disaster I've seen is relying on court or opposing counsel for guidance. All right. Excuse me. So, often in the court process, when someone's getting sued or they're part of a lawsuit, somehow they find themselves involved in it, someone may go without an attorney. All right. And they try to handle the case themselves. And in that case, we call that person an unrepresented party because that means they don't have legal representation. All right. So they're unrepresented by an attorney. In these cases, often these parties may mistakenly rely on the other people involved in the court process who do know the law, who do know the procedure, who are very familiar with the language and the terminology, the formats. They know that stuff. Okay. And these people are the court and the other attorneys involved who are actually opposing them. Now, let me tell you right now, this is always a mistake. First of all, because when you rely on the court, they can't do anything for you other than hear your case. It's your responsibility to bring it before them. The court is a neutral party. They're a neutral referee. They don't have any vested interest in the outcome. You'll hear about times when judges have to what's called recuse themselves because it means that they do have some kind of interest in the outcome or they are so familiar with one or other of the parties that they can't be involved because they have to be completely neutral. Okay. Now, there's all kind of news about that stuff nowadays, but that's the rule, so we're going to stick to that, all right? So when it comes to relying on the court, you can't do that. They're not going to advocate for you. They are not going to advise you. They cannot, okay, because it's not their place to. They're there to hear out what you have to say before them. They can't do it for you. But oftentimes, people will try to call the court clerk or call the judge's office and, ask what they should do. It's not for them to tell you. All right. That's for your lawyer to know. And if you're acting as your own lawyer, that's for you to know. And that's for you to find out. Okay. So this is not a wise move. The second one is even worse, and that's relying on opposing counsel. Opposing counsel is the attorney opposing you, right? The plaintiff versus the defendant. So if you're the plaintiff, it's the defendant's counsel. If you're the defendant, it's the plaintiff's counsel. They're bringing something against you or you're defending something against them. Their duty is to your opponent, all right? They are that person's lawyer, not yours. So that means they are ethically, by our legal ethical rules, obliged to assist their client, not you. All right. So anything that they would do to help you would conflict with that ethical duty. They're not going to do that. Okay, you might look to them for advice and try to go by their guidance and kind of how they're moving in the courtroom. They're not moving there for you though. So that's a mistake. And I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen where, there will be an unrepresented party, there's something involved, there's some land involved, there's some money involved, some kind of dispute is involved, and the unrepresented party is just kind of blank because they're not an attorney, so they don't know the courtroom, they don't know the process, they don't know the ins and outs, and they're just kind of relying on what the other lawyers are doing. That's a mistake. You will lose because you just don't know. You don't have that familiarity. You don't have that level of knowledge, right? And it's not that you're not intelligent. Like I said, I've seen professionals do this. Professionals with other degrees do this, but they're not attorneys, so they're not going to know. All right. So again, once again, it often results in that party losing their case, and this doesn't mean just losing the money and the property that is in dispute, but it also means losing so much time because the court process is time intensive. All right. There's a very specific schedule. It's called a docket. It has to move along periodically. It can be adjourned, which means delayed for a period of time here and there. I mean, there's so much time involved. You don't get that back. You never get that back. Even if you paid money for an attorney, you can get money back. You will never get that time back. All right. So they lose out on so much time. They lose out on so much of their own energy trying to keep up with what this court rule is, what it means. Okay, what is this? What retraining, not even retraining, training, right? Themselves on the fly against professionals who had years of experience, not to mention 4 years of law school, right? Who knows how to do this. So you lose that energy, the effort, and then there's so much stress that comes along with the court process in and of itself. So many times it can be very adversarial, that means versus this and that. So you're just kind of fighting it out, and it can be very contentious. All right. I've had these kind of cases also. A trained professional is not only going to know the complex court system, the process of it all, the terminology, the format, the actual written format of how you present it. Okay. But they're also going to be able to handle what's on the other side of that. A lot of it is attitude. A lot of it is confidence. A lot of it is communication. A lot of it is dealing with people. I always say people are the problem. It's never a legal problem. It's always a people problem at the end of the day. And you have to be able to stand up to the challenge in that manner. If you're somebody that's going to buckle down, you won't be prepared for it. Okay, so not only are you there standing alone, trying to defend your issue, okay, in a very particular system, but you're also there against sharks. Okay, sometimes a lot of them are sharks and they know how to eat. They know how to attack, right? And you're a guppy in the midst of sharks. Don't do that. Get your own shark to attack for you. Okay. And it doesn't mean like we have to be so vicious, but sharks can swim among sharks, all right, and not get hurt. You as a guppy, you can't. Okay. So this can absolutely destroy legacy dreams. Like I said, the property, the money involved is gone, but then you have so much time, energy, effort, stress. You're depleted yourself. So it's like, man, do I even want to continue building up this legacy? Do I even want to continue building this business? Do I want to continue building this property? Because then I know these challenges await and I'm not up for it. Right. And so it can do something to your confidence too. I've seen it happen. Don't make this mistake. Okay. And the money you pay to appropriate representation, especially when it comes to property issues and all that, is an investment in your legacy, not in that lawyer. Okay. And you get the right lawyer, they'll tell you the same thing. All right. So that's number one. Again, all the disasters we're talking about today is when it comes to just dealing with hiring representation, hiring legal representation. So the first one is, you don't do it and then you rely on the court, you rely on opposing counsel to try to see your way, feel your way through it. That's mistake number one. And like I said, real life scenarios, I've seen people not just lose the case, but lose so much more besides that. Okay, in addition to that. The second one is using online solutions. I call them cheap online solutions because, yeah, it might be accessible, it might be affordable, but that doesn't mean it's good for you. That doesn't mean it's appropriate for you. You can get this. I always have this joke. You can go to the Dollar Tree, and there's nothing wrong with shopping at Dollar Tree or any other dollar store, but there are some things I would never buy at a Dollar Tree or the dollar store because I want more quality than what's available there, and I'm not going to get it just because it's cheap. All right. Same thing goes with online legal solutions. All right. LegalZoom and Google Law School do not have all the answers you need for your specific situation. Yes, you may be able to type in a question, but guess what? Is it pertaining to your state? Right? The law can be very state specific. Are they talking about another state, another county, another city? I mean, there are so many layers to it. It can be just needlessly complex, but Google's not going to tell you that. LegalZoom is not going to tell you that. Now, they may give you some nice custom templates, but guess what? Is it standard with what the state looks for? So before you don't have to believe me, right? I can just be, oh, that lawyer telling you this. No, let me give you some real life examples, all right? So years ago, have a couple of these examples. Let me start with one. One was a daughter was appointed power of attorney by her mother. They went online, got some cheap legal form. I don't even know if it was LegalZoom. It might have just been a little download, okay, that they just printed out and filled out and signed. And they were using that to go to the bank to do some transactions for mom because mom was traveling, okay, and mom was in the midst of selling her home, but mom wasn't physically in the country to do that. So she had daughter become power of attorney through this little online form so she can handle her banking and real estate needs, okay? So, you know, some banks are they're more scrutiny. They scrutinize these things more and more now, and I think this is why, okay? So, daughter got away with using it a couple of times, but then when it came down to the property, when it came down to actually selling the house, she couldn't do it. The bank or whomever the financial institution was, they refused to take that power of attorney. And so daughter calls, our office, and I'm like, "Yeah, we can handle that issue, right?" I review the form. It's a very cheap, okay, very basic form. It doesn't look professional. It doesn't look tailored. It doesn't look intentional. But this is the key right here. In the state of Michigan, where I'm licensed, it did not have the exact legal language necessary to make it effective. Okay. When it comes to powers of attorney, that's changing too, by the way. So keep up with this channel because we're keeping up with the changes. Okay. Like I said, this was some years ago. So at that time, and still until I think July 1st. So there's some very specific legal language that needs to go into this power of attorney to make it effective, valid, and enforceable in the state of Michigan. Daughter didn't know that. Mother didn't know that. Cheap online solution didn't know that. Okay. A very good attorney is going to know that. An attorney who does this regularly, who studies this, who does it for their clients, who keeps up with the updates and changes, they will know that. They will know how to solve your issue. Not just solve your issue to make you happy, but know how to actually solve your issue. Okay. Or solve your issue because you pay them. Now they're going to go figure it out. No, they will know it before you come to them. Okay. So if daughter had come to me beforehand, all of this would have been straight away. But now they use this online cheap legal solution, bring it to me, and I tell them, look, this is no good. And we can't do a new one because mother is out of the country. So we can't execute one right now in person. She had to be there to sign it, witness it, and everything. So guess what? They can't sell the house. That's 6 figures. That's on hold that they cannot attain and acquire. That's legacy money right there. We're talking about property. We're talking about money, right? We're talking about big something money. But people just kind of treat it like, it's the house, blah, blah. Let me just get this little thing real quick online. Okay, do it at your own risk. But that's a real life example. Okay, and another one, let's go back to that I mentioned in the beginning. When it comes to, this was a financial power of attorney. There are 2 types, financial and healthcare. So let's talk about healthcare. When it comes to, the example I mentioned was ailing parents and getting better treatment facilities. So this was also maybe 4 or 5 years ago. A lot of this stuff happened before COVID. Okay, I mean, some just terrible stuff. Some other stuff has happened since COVID, but these examples, wow. Okay. There was a son who was also appointed power of attorney for healthcare purposes by mom using some online, form they found. And mom was slowly losing her capacity. Okay. So she was at the point where they also needed to sell her house, but she was she was either already in a mental facility, some kind of mental institution to help her mental health, or she needed to switch into another one. Okay. All the while where they needed to sell this house too. Trying to use this power of attorney, but it was not effective. Why? Because it wasn't executed properly. Again, language missing, and then some very specific signatures missing. And now they can't redo it because mom is institutionalized. Yeah, she doesn't have the mental capacity. I think if you look back on our last video, we have some videos about it. The mind, you need to have your mind right to be able to execute powers of attorney. It's called testamentary capacity. It's a very basic mental capacity issue you must have. Okay, before you can sign a will, before you can execute powers of attorney, before you can do a trust, you have to have sufficient mental capacity. She didn't have that anymore. So they couldn't redo it. They couldn't re-execute it. Again, they're just kind of stuck. What did it cost her? Better treatment facility, moving her into this place to this place. And it also costs, once again, the house. The house. And for so many of us, the house is a big part of legacy, right? Not just economically, but familial, right? The family legacy is there, is housed literally in this structure. Can't do that now. And if we got to sell it, can't get the money because you're using this online solution. All right. And I'm not knocking digital products. I have some. All right. But again, I put my own human knowledge into it, and it's very tailored for who it's tailored for. These online solutions, a lot of them are not so. So you have to be very careful when using them. Even if you want to use one and download it, it's still worth the money to take it to an attorney to review, or to just go to the attorney for review, because a good attorney is going to know exactly what it is that you need. All right. And I can say in 10 years of practice, my documents have not been rejected because I make sure that it looks like it's been carefully tailored. All the language is there. It looks like you meant to do it. You put money into that. You put time into it. It's good, instead of just something you printed out on the fly. There's a very big difference. And when it comes to banks, especially, they're looking for that because there's so much fraud going on out here, right? There's so much scamming and all that stuff. If it comes from a credible source, right, and you can refer them back to that credible source, your attorney, they won't reject it, and they haven't rejected mine. Okay, so just saying, you want to kind of gamble with your legacy, then go ahead and go and use those online solutions. And again, I'm not knocking them, but you got to be careful with what it is you're actually uh, paying for and what it is you're actually saving money on. Okay. And that comes to our third mistake. Our third mistake when it comes to destroying legacy is just the belief that you are saving money by not hiring a lawyer. Okay. What you save, quote unquote, in legal fees, you could end up paying more by default. And I'm talking about just in money. All right. So we talked about the houses. So yeah, you got this cheap online solution. It's costing you six figures of selling the home. Okay. It's already costing you the cost of not being able to care for ailing parents the way you want to. All right. But just the money part, the attorney fees part. So let me give you this example. I had a client come to me for a consultation, had been hit with a lawsuit, right? They were renting, and the tenant ended up suing them, something like that. And this was not too long ago. But this was a lower level judgment, okay? They're asking for $10,000. And the client says, basically, well, I didn't have the money for a lawyer. I didn't XYZ, so I just didn't do anything. Okay, so the client never responded to the lawsuit, right? The summons and complaint, right? The initial serving of the lawsuit. Never responded, never put in an appearance for himself. Obviously, never hired an attorney, never responded with an answer, just didn't do anything. Nothing. He was sent a bunch of documents by the other person had an attorney, okay? And this was a nonprofit lawyer. So even if you don't think you have enough, you can get it somehow. All right. But it's competitive at the bottom, not at the top. So either way, he thought he was saving money, not hiring a lawyer, XYZ. And so when I finally looked at the full file, what ended up happening was there was already a judgment against this person. When you don't answer and respond, and there's somebody else who is saying, no, this is what it is, then that's the narrative that the court is going with, because that's all that they have before them. And what ended up happening was there was a default judgment entered against this individual. And a default means by default, you lose because you never filed anything to say otherwise. So this is the case. So yeah, you didn't pay a dime, zero on attorney fees. But guess what? Now you got to pay $10,000 automatically. And that's just 10,000. I've seen it happen with 100,000. Just didn't do anything. Nothing, and had insurance, had this, had that, just nothing. And got hit with $100,000. So yeah, you don't have to pay me. Okay. You don't have to pay me whatever you think my fee is. All right. Even if it's 1/10 of that. So let's say you think you're saving, $10,000. Yeah, but then you end up paying 100,000. It happens. It happens. And of course, that is a disaster for your legacy because there's property involved. So now do you have to put a lien on that property, right? To satisfy the judgment? The six figures, that's coming straight out of your legacy, right? That could be going to grandchildren's college tuitions. That could be going to daughters and sons' weddings. That could be going to investing in another business. That could be going to, becoming an angel investor, philanthropist, whatever it is. But it don't have to go to the other party right away because you thought you were saving money on attorney fees. All right. And that's just the real deal. I've seen these cases happen too many times before. When it gets to me at that point, I can't help you with it. And so let's talk about that. All right. This is the bonus here. Paying an attorney to try to clean up something that is not cleanable. I'm not going to take your money for that. And any lawyer who does but can't really give you an answer, be wary of that. Okay. So in all of those scenarios, I just had to tell the people, and all of them but one, I just had to tell the people, listen, this was done improperly. The power of attorneys, that's done improperly. And now that, person is out of the country, mother doesn't have capacity, I can't do anything about that. I can't execute because they're not here to do it. The default judgment, I can't help you get out of that. No, because it has to go to a higher court. It have to go to an appellate court. But what can I appeal if you put nothing on the record in your behalf? There is literally nothing to bring up there. Okay. One that I was able to resolve was someone who had relied on, doing it themselves. And there were mistakes made, but there was enough put out there to clean that one up. And so, but how did it happen? Hiring an attorney to put it all together. And we did win the case in the appeals court because there was at least enough on the base level. Okay. But that is not common. I don't advise you to do that. It can still save years of time. All right. Of stress, of money, of energy in investing in appropriate legal representation for yourself up front. Okay, so that is our video for today. Those were 3 more mistakes to avoid, 3 more disasters, legal disasters to avoid when it comes to your legacy dreams. All right, and this is Thursday, June 13th. We will see you again next Thursday, June 20th, same time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, until then, take care.